Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the show, The Controversy. Of course, where we tackle controversial issues, social illnesses, and of course, our controversial issue today is slavery. And we will be dissecting, trying to see what is it that we know about the slavery, the origin thereof, and is it still existing? And of course, I got my fundi here, Mr. Steve. How are you?
Thank you very much, sir. How are you?
I'm super. I'm super.
Yes, we greet the audience, and yes, we here today. And yes, my name is Muzigaise
Mm.
Mkholo Kasthebe.
You seem a bit down, no, man. What's happening?
No, no, I'm not. I'm not. Believe me.
Are
And
you alright?
yes, I'm here today to discuss the issue of slavery
Mm.
and try to understand it at least.
Yeah, let's try. All we
Yes.
can do is try.
Yes, I'm using the word try because of it's a very complex issue in itself.
It's very touchy indeed, and we are going to be diving in just to try and align us. Where did the slavery come from? Where is it coming from?
Vetu, thank you for this opportunity to speak about this topic.
Mhm.
And uh, my understanding or my point of departure would be there is a misconception
Mm.
and misguided information about slavery. And I'm glad that today's show it's going to perhaps enlighten and teach us more where slavery comes from. Because of most people, they think that slavery is the Western thing.
Mhm.
That's number one, which is not true.
Where is it coming from?
Um, Even though the slavery itself it predates history.
Mm.
We may all agree that slavery, according to the Code of Hammurabi, we may all agree that slavery started or its context was documented in the Code of Hammurabi in Mesopotamia, which
Mm.
is Asia.
Mhm.
That's one part. And Mesopotamia, it's between in modern geography, it's between Turkey and Iraq and Syria.
Mm.
And in actual fact, that's where civilization started. Civilization it did not start from the West. It started in Asia.
Mm.
So same thing with slavery. Slavery, it is documented there. Not that it started there, but it is documented as a policy there. So it is an adopted policy in the West. It's something that they saw and then they copied it. Perhaps the issue of commercialization of it,
Mm.
it can be given to them as people who commercialized on it. And yes, I'm saying that because of even in Africa before the colonization, before even whites came
Mm.
into Africa, there was slavery. Perhaps it's another issue, would see, we did not maybe call it slavery or there was no name or a category of that act.
Mhm.
Because of my understanding would be slavery came uh, or it was generated based on at least five things, which you may allow me to have.
Please elaborate.
One, slavery came as a form of punishment.
Mm.
That's one. Number two, slavery came as a form. It was a result of war, the casualties
Of war.
of war, and
Okay.
then slaves will be given to the warriors, to the conquerors
Uh,
of the battle
to
as
serve
an
them.
incentive.
Mm.
That's number two. Number three, it was used. a collateral
Mm.
of debt. So if ever your parents were owing someone they couldn't pay, now this is even very common in Africa,
Mm.
and it was common then before before the colonization, and it is even common now. If someone was owing you uh, some money or kettles or whatever,
Mm.
and then you failed to settle that debt, he would easily go to you or to the leader and say, "This man is owing me so much,"
Mm.
and it will be made or pronounced to you, ukuthi, instead of you paying this man because of you can't afford to pay this man,
Mm.
this man is now allowed to take your daughter
Mm.
as one of his wives. And you see that itself, because of, remember now, you are exchanging your daughter, you are giving your daughter away because of you cannot pay the debt. So that practice, it's not a practice that we were taught by whites.
Mm.
That's why I'm saying the issue of slavery itself, it's very controversial, and people may think that I'm the one who's trying to be controversial,
Mm.
yet it's the topic itself that it's very controversial on its origin, because of in actual fact I was thinking about it, Puti, and saying, um, you know and another example of it would be the issue of the
Mm.
Israelites, who were kept into captivity by the Egyptians for 400 years. And the question that I may ask you, Uguti, where is Egypt?
Mm. Africa.
Exactly. So you can
So.
see that this practice, we were doing it. Perhaps, I mean, we were not really calling it names, but for me, it's irrelevant and immaterial that in Europe and in America, they had categorized this thing and said this is it's slavery.
Mm.
Yet here we were continuing practicing it, yet we were not really giving it a name
Name.
or a
Oh.
category. So for me, the deliberations and the act of it are the same. So that's why I'm saying we were practicing it. And another part, which I think it's very important that we need to highlight, Uguti, it's not an easy uh, uh, subject to deal with.
Mm.
And I'm saying this because of even the understanding of Jesus Christ, that Jesus Christ came to the earth and he performed all miracles. He changed water into wine. He resurrected Lazarus. He died with the loan shark and the tax collector. You know, but he never pronounced on the matter.
Mm.
So
Slavery.
he changed. He did everything that he could
So it was
in
all
his
right for him.
limited time, but he never really made a pronunciation on the matter. But instead, according to Paul and other writers of the Bible, they will tell you about uh, uh, be slave of Christ.
Mm.
We must be slave of God and all that. So
So they are
yes,
promoting the
yes,
slavery.
yes. So slavery, it started to, yes, in Middle East, as maybe it was documented there, but it was a common practice, and
Mm.
it is a common practice, I mean, in the world. Because I was even thinking of it. I mean, when we were growing up,
Mm.
there are circumstances whereby one uh, will be taken to the family member, and that agreement, obviously, it was an agreement between the two parties or two family members to say,
Mm.
hey, at this moment, I mean, I'm having financial problems. Can
Mm.
you please look after
It-
my children?
What?
And let's draw, I mean, a very important factor to what I'm highlighting. To say, if ever I were to come to you and say, where to at this point in time, I'm having some financial challenges. Will you please look after my kids? And you agree.
Mm.
And then I am aware that my children will be deprived certain rights. One, your children will attend school.
Mm.
Why my children will be performing odd jobs,
Mm.
heading your cows, so that itself, if ever you may look at it, it's slavery.
Mm.
And again, there was no a white who was acting as an intermediary between the two African families or two members of the families. This was an agreement between the two parties. So that's where Vetu, that is slavery. And yes, we mostly focus on two forms of slavery, which one is what we call domestic slavery. That is very common. One will be performing odd duties, I mean, labor duties in your home. And there's what we call military slavery and state slavery, which, of course, they are the results of wars and all that. So that is what is slavery.
Mm.
But again, there is that's why I'm saying that the issue itself is very complex in a way that people they are not I mean capacitated to differentiate between trade slavery and slavery, because these are two issues.
So there's a where we're selling people, that is trafficking.
Yes, that is trade slavery, which of course was which of course is a child of slavery. And it is believed that, I mean, like I said, Uguti, it was just a common practice everywhere, even in Europe. But this act stopped around 14th century in Europe. And then when it stopped, now there was a need for these people to go and search for better candidates who were going to perform these jobs. Remember, even in the issue of Vikings were enslaving people and all, but it stopped that the European countries will enslave themselves. So they thought, Uguti, I mean, they should go and perhaps look somewhere for better candidates to perform this. And again, it was all in connection with the economy, because of slaves, state slaves now were working in tobacco plantations, in sugar fields. So it was now all economically motivated because of the market was introduced.
So do you think slavery is still continuing even currently, as China is using their employees
Yes,
for
true,
manufacturing
true,
stuff?
true. In actual fact, if ever you speak about slavery, there are at least five countries that we may pinpoint to this act of cruelty. One, we will speak about America, we'll speak about China, and Spain, and Greece. In actual fact, those are the main countries who were at forefront in terms of enslaving people. But again, it is very important again to state Vetu Uguti, even Africans themselves were not only victims but were willing participants on this matter.
Also.
Right. We before I even go into that, I mean, it is a known fact that even though slavery was one act that was very common in globally, but 80% of slaves were Africans. So you would hardly find, not that they were not there. So after 14th century, I mean, you will hardly find, I mean, a white person working as a slave. But 80% of people who were slaves or people who were descendants of slaves are Africans. And I'm saying to you, uh, Africa and Africans are not only victims because of the data shows that between 1400 and 1800, which is about 400 years,
Mm.
about 18 million people were migrated to different parts of this world
For slavery.
for slavery. And there are waves, one we call it transatlantic slave trade.
Mm.
And the second one is Indian Ocean trade and slave trade, and the other one it's I think it's Red Sea slave. So there were waves because of remember I mean this act happened on different regimes. I mean different reigns and all that.
Mm.
So yes, so I'm saying Africans were not victims, but also they were willing participants because of I mean, there is evidence that shows Uguti, I mean, in particular, British buyers, Middle East buyers did not go and capture people in Africa,
Mm.
but there was black violence between
Black on black.
black on black, and the one who won the battle, he will simply, I mean, capture these people, one ethnic group, and sell them. Because these people, it is understood that they only came to Africa, but they were more concentrated in ports, in harbors. So that's where they would trade. And another a controversial factor on the matter is that slaves were not only migrated as slaves, but they were carrying something. They were carrying ivory that belonged to them. They were carrying, I mean, gold in exchange of guards and all that. So that's why I'm saying whites themselves, yes, it happened, but it's very rare.
Mm.
But whites will give, or buy, slaves, African slaves from other Africans.
Mm.
So that's why I'm saying we are not really saints when it comes to this matter. We're willing participants and we're participating willingly so.
Mm. So it's the same as this topic where you would consider as a person, as an African person to
Well,
white
that
person.
one it's not the same because of obviously that it is an act that it's happening without you approving it.
Yeah,
It is the system itself that
or
forces
it is
you.
the system.
Yes, but at that particular era, people were doing it willingly to
Mm.
say, okay, fine, I've captured, the Stebes land,
Mm.
and now I'm going to sell the Stebes land. And the reason that even most of the slaves, you would find them in at least the background and the lineage, you will find them in America and in Europe. Not that the other continents, Asia, Chinese and Middle East people, but it was an issue now of a better rate. So it is understood that the British and then the Americans were paying our African brothers better
Mm.
than their counterparts.
Also, they would be a preferred
Yes, yes. So
over
yes,
others.
yes.
Mm. Okay. So the impact thereof of this slavery, what did it do to us? What do you think it did to
Yo,
us?
the impact of it's massive. And now that you even mention it, I was thinking about it this morning,
Mm.
and I'm saying my name is Umuzgais Mkolwa Step.
Mm.
But my parents were very generous to give me a slavery name.
What was the slavery?
I'm not going to mention it because of you are a lawyer. You're going to ask me what is the meaning of it,
behind.
and yes, the meaning of it, and I won't be able to tell you the meaning because I don't know the meaning, and I will be making a spectacle of myself to say, "Oh, this guy, he does not understand or he does not know the meaning of his word of his
Of his
name."
name. Mm.
You
His
know,
full
but
name.
I don't think again people will judge me harshly because of they are also a part and parcel of of that problem
They're
that
impacted,
yes, they are impacted,
affected.
yes, or
Mm,
affected thereof,
mm,
yes.
all right. So you were still defining how did it impact?
Yeah, but it impacted us massively
Mm,
because of, remember now, at least we understand that about 80,000 people were migrated from their original shores to different parts of the world.
mm,
And remember, these people were hard on labor. I mean, bringing civilization to the West, working hard, bringing even their ideas at some point were stolen
mm,
by whites to develop their countries, while our countries and our continent was less developed or underdeveloped. So that itself, it's got, a direct impact of what happened then and
mm.
what is happening now. You know, and I always say, a man without an identity is he's less than a man. So that's what it did to us. That even if there is a saying that, and I always believe that. There's nothing like we are all free.
Mm.
We can never
We're
be
not
free.
free.
Yeah, one way or another, we are enslaved. But I truly believe that disobedience is the passage
Of slavery.
of being free from slavery.
Mm.
But if you are obedient, the chances are you are a very suitable candidate to be a slave for forever and ever.
So if I get you straight, you are saying slavery was then created by the imbalance of our wisdom and therefore which led to the economic finances which makes us imbalanced, then overpowering you means I
Yeah.
owe you
Yes.
in that
Well,
way.
yeah. Imbalance. Correctly, well put it, but not really the lack of wisdom,
Mm,
because of I think the moral issue, it came into play here.
mm,
So perhaps you are very right when you say it was a result
mm,
or results of imbalance, or one party treating others as subhumans.
mm.
But I'm just saying that we were also participating, candidates
To the slavery.
yes, to this cruelty. Yes, there are instances whereby whites really imposed trade slavery to us, but it's not just one blanketed
Mm,
issue.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, moving to our second segment now, which is the current status quo of the topic. Do you think it still exists even currently, the slavery?
Yeah, you see slavery, in fact, it exists.
Mm,
It is only that, it's given, maybe welcoming and modern names,
mm,
but it exists.
oh,
Because remember, slavery, it's something that has to do with forced labor.
mm,
It's something that has to do with depriving someone rights of movement, and it's something that has to do being authoritative to one, in terms of, giving guidelines on when and what to do at a particular time.
mm,
So
mm,
if ever you were to apply, that into what we are talking about, you will realize that we are not really excluded from modern slavery or institutionalized slavery.
oh, so you're saying there's two forms of slavery that are currently happening, which is institutional slavery, which is the system by the government.
Yes, it's very systemic. In a way, you can try to run away from it, but I mean, there's no space for you to do so, because of it is very institutionalized.
Mm,
For you, you do not have, I mean, ownership of anything.
mm,
Therefore, you rely to second part, and the second part will be the capitalist, who obviously will use you
mm,
for the betterment of his or her company, or pushing his own agenda to be a better in market. So then itself, it's very systemic, but you cannot really run away from it, because of, really, how are you going to survive? Because everything now, it requires one to go and labor.
mm,
It requires one to go and search for and labor and apply his skills to someone who's a master, by the way.
mm.
You may call someone a CEO, but in old terms, that is your master.
So you are enslaved by him.
Yes, you are a master, because the master will tell you what time you report to work,
Mm,
what to wear, and what time do you knock off. At some point, they would even look at your background,
mm,
whether you were raised in a Christian way. That's why I'm saying, even my parents were progressive thinkers and very generous, to say, no, we must give this man, I mean, a slavery name, so that it would be even easier
mm.
for
Capture.
their future, for his future master to even pronounce his name.
Mm,
They
mm,
even, some of us were even sent to African schools to understand I mean, the language of the master.
mm,
You see,
mm.
so it was very systemic. It was very
And
systemic.
it is still even now. We learning to become better workers. There's no business
The
minded.
curriculum
Mm,
itself, it's pushing us to be better slaves,
mm.
understanding slaves.
Yeah, we said there's two type of slavery.
Yes,
And
which
the
I've dealt with one, which
this
was
uh,
institutionalized.
institutionalized one,
Yes,
and
yes.
the other one,
Actually, you mean the modern
the
slavery.
modern slavery. Oh, it's part and parcel
Yeah, it's part and
of the
parcel of
same
it.
thing.
Yes.
So, with modern slavery, where are we going with this? Is it a question that we can be able to let loose of such? Can we free ourselves, our mind from this modern slavery?
Um, well, again, it's the issue of the possibilities
Mm,
of whether it is possible for us to emancipate our minds. And the answer to that is, it's a big yes.
possible.
It is possible, because of, even now, we are speaking about the matter, we are making noise about the matter. But another fundamental question is, I mean, are we well equipped
Mm,
to deal with modern slavery, or are we in a position to deal with it, and abolish it completely? The answer to that is no,
mm,
because of, right, we would then require to be, one, to be in a possession of land, to be in a possession of wealth, to be in a possession of of the commodities, to
mm,
be our own masters. In actual fact, the only way to free yourself from slavery is to become a master. That's why I said to you, I mean, disobedience is the passage to free yourself from slavery.
mm.
But being obedient, to anything and to the system, it might as well be considered as a suitable candidate of,
Mm.
of, of slavery.
Okay, so talking about going forward with this slavery, as it did very horrific things to us, do we still maybe have this trauma that is holding us back to move forward
Yes,
as
wait.
a nation?
Yes, and thank you for that wise question. I have a serious problem with our current government, but
Mm,
and and scholars, who seem to be very modest
mm,
about slavery, the origin of slavery, modern slavery, because of, you see, slavery for me, like I said, ukuthi, it's very symbolic.
Mm.
And for me, I feel ukuthi it is one topic that it should be ventilated. I mean, we need to speak about it.
Mm.
We need to speak about the origin of it. We need to speak about the atrocities. The cruelty, of it. We need to speak about SS Mendy. We need to speak about Sarah Batman, to say, we have Sarah Batman, a beautiful African lady, who was shaped in an African way, but then she was considered to be subhuman. She was victimized. She was taken and paraded in the streets of London, to the streets of Birmingham, to the streets of Liverpool, as this creature who is very abnormal, as this creature, a African creature who's very subhuman, and that itself, to me, I think ukuthi, we shouldn't really commemorate ukuthi, okay, Sarah Batman, died in 1816, and then it ends there. But we need to educate our kids and say, this what happened to us. And even the reluctance of our governments to act on the matter, like, if maybe you may allow me to speak about Sarah Batman.
Please do.
So she was a beautiful African lady from Hottentots group, Hottentots, or Khoi and the same group. So she was an orphan raised by her aunt. We do not know whether there was an exchange of money or she was captured. But at least we understand that she was very fluent in her own language, which was the Khoi language, and then she spoke a little bit of Germany and Afrikaans and English. So she was taken, shipped to England. She worked there. She performed there, in museums, in cages, naked. It's very important to state that ukuthi, she performed these duties. She was playing a guitar. She would sing in Afrikaans, in English, and in other languages, wearing an apron, and a Hottentot apron, which was only the symbol of her identity, that she came with it, apron, to actually symbolize that she was from, and she was from Africa. So that apron would only cover her genitals. And she was fed gin and daha, or what we call cannabis. So even most of these white settlers, or maybe white imperialists, they will always, if ever you bring the issue of Sarah Batman, they will say she was alcoholic. But no one will question ukuthi, who was giving her alcohol. And then for her to perform Veto, she would perform naked. And people will have privilege to go and pay for that matter, to view her, to touch her, to satisfy their sexual desires on an African a daughter, and then, yes, she died in 1816, and the autopsy results showed that she died of tuberculosis. But the cruel part of slavery did not even end there. Her private parts, her genitals, were removed from her skeleton. Put into display. Her skeleton, her brain was removed from her skull, put into display for people for hundreds of years. People will come and see this subhuman South African descendant.
The trade around
Yes, yes.
the
And the
trade.
government of the country, of course, at least I understand that in 1976, when now there was a new movement, feminism,
Mhm.
at least around the world, they complained about the issue. Then her genitals and all that was removed from the museums in Paris and in London, but it was put in a separate room.
Mhm.
And then, yes, in 2002, he was only repatriated to South Africa and given a proper burial. And that story itself, it is very sad. And it shows, I mean, the level of cruelty that was imposed, by whites, of course, enslaving our people.
Mm.
That itself for me, it's one of those stories that I feel ukuthi it should be there. People must know about it because of very few people who know about who Sarah Batman
Mm.
was.
Mm.
And most people, they would say no, oh, Mabagisha, and all that, but they do not understand. The cruelty, or of slavery that happened to it. And I will always say, 600 troops, black troops,
Mm.
black native troops died. When SS Mendy was heading to France,
Mhm.
when these people were shipped, to France to support the war, the first World War, that was taking place at the time. And I always say, in my understanding, that these people had no business
Mm.
with whatever was happening in Europe. They had no business of the battles and the wars that were
Mm.
happening
They were
into
just
the other
involving
side of the
us.
sea. Yes, but we were enslaved.
Mm.
And again, if we talk now about modern slavery, you would wonder, Uguti, I mean, what is the government doing about forced labor
As now,
as
as it is
now?
continuously happening.
Yes, it is continuously happening.
All right. Do you think maybe we are ready if ever there was supposed to, or there were means for us to be free? Are we ready to maintain our fooding, the food we eat?
The issue of food security, Mfethu,
Mm.
it's one a topic that I feel, Uguti, perhaps we can speak about it, but we cannot do anything about it because of for you to grow food,
Mm. It relies heavily on.
it relies heavily. You need land,
Mm.
you see. So perhaps we might be in a position and understand ukuthi we can, because obviously, we fed ourselves before the white
Mm. Mm.
settlers came into our shores. So we were in control of our food security. We were in control of whatever that we were eating, or whatever. We were in control of our economy. And then until the white settlers came, and then they took our land, and then again they enslaved us, forced us to work in the very same land that they stole from
Mm.
us.
Mm.
You see, so yes, it is possible, but the government must make the land available to us. Then from there we can say, okay, now we are in a position to take control and of the food security and the food issue.
And it is something that is very natural again.
I believe, yes, yes, it
We
is. It
cannot
is.
fail nature,
No, you can never
or
fail.
nature cannot fail
No,
us.
no, nature can never fail us.
Mm. So with this heavy technology, of course, it's something that is doable as long as the government is
True, I
focusing
I,
on it.
I I agree to that.
Mm.
I agree to that.
All right, looking forward now into the third segment, going forward into the future. Do you think possibly is there ever going to be an end to this mental slavery that is engulfing the African people?
I think the cause and effects of slavery, Mfethu, is deeply rooted.
mm,
and it's going to be very difficult. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible, but
mm,
it's going
mm.
to be very difficult to uproot it and eradicate it completely.
All right. The issue of slavery is mostly on land. It is more leaning on land as people are now forced, as we are now forced into this revolution where we are working for other people instead of
Yes,
working for
yes,
ourselves.
yes, yes.
So, with land, as the government is still shying away with land, what do you think can be done to make sure this land comes back to the
We
owner?
just expropriate it
Mm.
without compensation, and then we act on it. We don't
But
speak on it, but we act on it.
the detrimental parts thereof, don't you think we will follow the likes of our neighboring countries where we find ourselves?
No, but
Well,
you see the issue of our neighboring country, Zimbabwe in particular, to be specific,
mm,
because of, again, it's not a secret that I mean, it, it, I have a problem with it because of, one, we need to understand that on how it was done, there was no preparation of it.
mm,
But I mean, the old man,
God,
Gabriel,
mm,
he used it in actual fact to win the elections.
mm.
Because of
Oh,
yes, he could see that people were now starting to doubt his leadership.
uh,
And
uh,
people were losing. Confidence in him. So boom, he comes and say, I'm giving you land. This land belongs to you, without
pro,
proper consultation,
uh,
without preparing these people. I once had a conversation with a Zimbabwean fellow. He said, we were given land, and there were plenty of trees,
mm,
you know. So we ate the fruits, but the winter approached,
mm.
and then
Now it's cold.
it was cold,
Uh,
and then we decided to cut the trees. Remember, some of the trees can take up to 100 years
uh, for them to give the plants.
for them to give you plants.
Uh,
20 years, 50 years. Then they cut the trees, not only doing injustice to nature, but again they burn these trees, and then come the following season now,
harvesting season.
harvesting season, they had nothing to do. So I think we cannot really draw parallels and say and be afraid of even acting on it. As long as this thing is done in a proper way, there is a preparation of it. And again, the hand of the West, I think it was too hostile
Mm,
to 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 the people of Zimbabwe. I think on how they responded to sanction Zimbabwe, because of Zimbabwe. Gabriel was giving Zimbabwean people what really belonged to the Zimbabwean people.
mm,
So the sanctions, I think, were very harsh, and therefore I think the most important thing, or the important step that perhaps will assist us at least uh, not to repeat what happened in Zimbabwe. One is proper consultation. We prepare ourselves, but mostly, again, we do away with this capitalism thing, and be ukuthi we are afraid ukuthi, the West will pull out. The West will not give us oil. The West will not give us fuel, whereas we have enough resources to even produce our own oil. So if ever we can start first establishing what we can do on our own, because of 100 of things, 90% or 98% of things, we can do them on our own without the help of West, without West, Western people assisting us.
mm.
If ever we can nurture that, and ace that, I think it would be easier in terms of really taking land into to African people, of because of that's where it belongs. It belongs to them.
Definitely, it belongs to us. Kawasaki, the writer of The Rich Dad Poor Dad, names this modern slavery as a red race.
Hmm.
So, as we are unboxing ourselves in this red race, we just want to hear your advice on how we now, excluding now the government, how we as individuals would be able to remove ourselves from this form of asceticism.
You see, again, it's a very wise observation,
Mm,
you know, because of I've always have encounters with our African brothers, and they will tell you that us South Africans, we seem to rely more on what the government can
mm,
do to can
us can do for
yeah,
us.
yeah, can do for us, instead of really I mean using the privilege of being very independent thinkers and
Mm,
do something of our own, you know. And I'm saying that it's very possible to work and to start with what you already have. Surely, people, I think they are better what better equipped because of even the level of education and understanding. It's there
mm,
for them to start their own thing, to start their own businesses, you know. So I think it is possible. But I'm saying you need to start with what you have, you know.
mm,
You
mm,
need to start generating any form of income, you know, whether you call it a side hustle or whatever, but you need to generate a form of income and be your own master, you know.
self-sustained. Mm.
Self-sustenance, I think, is the key to your question, and it's an answer to your question.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Stebe, for blessing us with your presence as
Yes,
usual.
yes, yes.